In the short time Jimi Hendrix was alive, it's understandable why he comes at the top of the list of the greatest guitar players of all time. His innovations with feedback, his use of the wah pedal, his use of his tremolo, and his iconic fuzz tone and clean tones on songs like Little Wing easily created the psychedelic hard rock god persona he had going on. But when it came to playing live, there are many people who believe while Hendrix pioneered many techniques that would be light years ahead of anyone else, he was often called sloppy for his unorthodox techniques and overuse of distortion. For example, many thought the loud sound effects he created with his guitar, the static of the distortion, and feedback from his guitar were just too much at times and made Hendrix look sloppy live. Not to mention, Jimmy's guitar would often go out of tune, forcing Hendrix to retune live or play out of tune. Eddie Van Halen would even claim Jimi Hendrix was a sloppy guitar player at times and therefore preferred Eric Clapton over him. Nonetheless, as a left-handed guitarist in a world where there were few left-handed guitars, the innovations he made and the techniques he created would be used by generations long after his death. Eddie Van Halen was hands down the biggest guitar hero of the 1980s and took the guitar world by storm when he first burst onto the scene with his band's debut album Van Halen in 1978. And as the decade went on, he only got bigger and better musically after every new album release. But after David Lee Roth left in 1985 and Sammy Hagar in 1996, Eddie would often have moments of weakness on stage and mess up. Things got really bad though in the early 2000s where Eddie looked very unhealthy and played very sloppy live. Understandably, with his drug and alcohol addictions, Eddie's playing suffered a lot, but once Eddie went to rehab in 2007, he eventually made a great comeback to the stage and made a great return to form. Another guitarist who battled many substance issues and has even been incarcerated was Keith Richards. Now, with all due respect, Richards has created some of rock's greatest riffs and has written some of rock's greatest songs alongside Mick Jagger, but outside the studio, Keith's playing has been up and down over the years. At times, Keith has been energetic and fluid in his playing, sounding just like he did on the records. At other times, he's been sloppy, off-key, out of tune, and has even fallen off the stage. Now at 80 years old, Keith's lucky to be alive, and fortunately for the Stones, Ronnie Wood has done a great job of keeping the songs tight and performing many of the band's classic solos. And before him, Mick Taylor was a huge part of the Rolling Stones after Brian Jones's death, so I guess for Keith, he's more of a songwriter, and he's made it more a part of his persona to go off script when it comes to playing songs live. In the studio, Jimmy Page was one of the most sought-after session guitarists in his teenage years and later created some of the greatest guitar riffs and solos in Led Zeppelin. But when it came to playing live, Jimmy Page has been often criticized for playing sloppy solos or messing up licks live in concert. Now, in Zeppelin's earlier years, from 1969 to 1973, Jimmy was arguably at his best, producing some of Zeppelin's best albums or giving fans shows like in the concert film The Song Remains the Same. But sometime after 1975, it's very noticeable how Jimmy slurs licks more and messes up his solos on songs like Stairway to Heaven. But it's truly debatable because those are his songs and he can play them any way he wants. But on the other end, it makes sense if Jimmy's lifestyle was beginning to catch up to him and affect his live playing. For example, if you listen to his licks and solos before 1975, you can hear how much cleaner and fluid Jimmy's playing is, but in the Nebworth concerts in 1979, Jimmy just sounds all over the place. It's a totally night and day comparison when you try to listen to Jimmy and Led Zeppelin at Royal Albert Hall in 1970 versus how Jimmy was sounding during Zeppelin's European tour in 1980. Producer Max Norman, who has worked closely with Page in the past, said that when Page asks about what he thinks about being called a sloppy guitar player, Max said that he simply doesn't care and everything he did on stage was in the moment and that he was feeling the music. He didn't care about getting every note and phrase perfectly. Maybe that's a sentiment that can be said for many of the older guitar players. Guys like Jimmy Page and Keith Richards have both said that they don't play their songs the same night after night and they always play their songs differently than what is on the record. They didn't care about it being perfect and they never intended it to be perfect. In Zeppelin's case, they played so many of their songs constantly that they had to keep changing things up, otherwise it would be boring. That's how they became known for their live improvisations during their songs that often led to them creating new ones. That live jamming is a big part of what the band would become known for. Even Jimi Hendrix or the Stones liked to change things up and didn't care if their solos were out of key or if their guitars were out of tune. Even Ritchie Blackmore from Deep Purple said that the new generation of guitarists who play for perfection are missing the feeling in music. The soul in music music is the mistakes in playing and leaving it in anyways. That's why many modern guitar players who play without missing a note all sound the same to him. But what do you guys think? Was Jimmy Page a sloppy guitar player or any of the other guitarists mentioned here? Do you prefer perfect playing, or do you believe it's okay if a guitarist makes a few mistakes? Let us know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.